Got the 31st seed, Ayala. She gets a bye in the first round. She'll take on either Sigemund or Marchenko.
Have you ever stepped outside in Miami in late March? Because the air doesn't just surround you, it attacks you. It wraps itself around your throat like a soaking wet towel that someone wrung out and left baking in the sun for 3 days straight. It has weight. It has a physical presence that you can feel pressing against your chest with every single breath. It literally begins draining your body before you've even taken your first step onto the hard court. Your shirt is soaked before the warm-up ends. Your legs feel heavy before the first ball is struck. The humidity isn't a weather condition in Miami, it's an opponent. A living, breathing, relentless force that tests the absolute physical limits of what the human body can handle. Every breath feels like a small victory. Every point feels like it costs twice what it should. But here's the thing, and this is the part that nobody in the tennis world can stop talking about right now. At the 2026 Miami Open, that brutal, soul-sapping, suffocating Florida heat? That is the absolute least of anyone's concerns. Because the draw has just dropped. And the moment it did, the entire tennis world stopped what it was doing and locked in. Not because of the defending champions. Not because of the world number ones. Not because of any of the marquee matchups that tournament directors spend months carefully constructing to fill seats and sell broadcast packages. No. There is one matchup, just one, that has completely and violently hijacked every single conversation happening in and around Hard Rock Stadium right now. And it isn't generating excitement. It isn't generating buzz. It is generating something far more primal than that. It is generating dread. A low, electric, stomach-dropping hum of anticipation that feels less like a routine second-round tennis match and more like the opening act of a psychological horror film that nobody asked for, but everyone is terrified to miss. Ayala, the 31st seed, the iron-willed, gritty, battle-hardened rising force who has spent her entire career making experts look foolish for underestimating her, has secured a first-round bye. Clean. Free passage into the second round without breaking a sweat. Sounds like an advantage, right? Sounds like the universe finally cutting her a break. But her path forward doesn't lead to an easy win against a lower-ranked opponent. Her path forward leads directly, unavoidably, and perhaps tragically into the eye of a storm that nobody on the professional tour willingly walks toward. She is set to face Laura Siegemund. And if you are sitting there right now thinking that sounds like just another second-round match on a Wednesday afternoon, you have absolutely no idea what you are about to witness. This is not tennis. This is not a game of forehands and backhands and serve percentages. This is a high-stakes, full-contact psychological war played out under the blinding white Florida sun, in front of thousands of fans who already know exactly what is coming. And right now, every commentator, every coach, every player sitting in that locker room, and every fan watching from the upper deck is asking the exact same question. One that sounds simple, but is utterly impossible to answer until that first ball is tossed into that humid Miami air. Can Ayala survive what Laura Siegemund does to people's minds?
Even less than a zero because they treated me bad. Like, they treated me like I was a cheater, like I was, like, trying, sneaky ways to win this match or something. They treated me like I was a bad person. But, there are people who are throwing rackets, who are screaming, who are, like, making bad gestures towards...
So, who exactly is Laura Siegemund? And why does her name alone cause an immediate, visceral, almost physical reaction from players and fans across the entire WTA Tour? Because if you're new to professional tennis, or if you have somehow managed to miss an entire decade of drama, controversy, and absolute chaos, you need to understand something right now. Her reputation is not built on Grand Slam titles. It is not built on a dominant serve that pins opponents to the back fence. It is not built on raw athletic power or a signature shot that fans travel across the world to see in person. Her reputation is built on wreckage. Specifically, the smoldering, smoking wreckage of her opponent's mental composure. The shattered focus, the stolen rhythm, the slow, creeping psychological collapse of players who stepped onto the court against her believing they had what it took, and walked off the other end wondering what on earth just happened to them. Because Laura Sigemund does not play the ball. She plays the person standing across the net. She plays the chair umpire sitting in the tall chair above the court. She plays the crowd roaring in the stands. She plays the clock ticking down between points. She orchestrates the entire environment of a tennis match like a conductor standing in front of an orchestra, except the music she is creating is pure, calculated, deliberate chaos. And she has been doing it for so long, so consistently, and so effectively that it has become the very first line of her scouting report on every professional tour. It is the worst-kept secret in women's tennis. When you draw Sigemund in a tournament, the first conversation you have with your coach is not about her backhand. It is not about her serve placement or her movement patterns. The first conversation is always the same: how do we stop her from getting inside our head? She is the undisputed, reigning, undefeated queen of the stall. The tactical shoelace tie that takes 4 minutes longer than any shoelace has ever needed. The strategic towel break requested at the exact moment her opponent has found their flow and is starting to feel unstoppable. The phantom injury, the knee, the shoulder, the back, that triggers a lengthy medical timeout and then miraculously, completely, and conveniently disappears the exact second the umpire calls time back in. The endless, looping, pointless debate with a chair official over a line call that was not even remotely close, designed not to change the call but to make everyone on the court stand still and wait while her opponent's muscles cool down and their mind starts to drift into dangerous territory. Every single tactic in her arsenal exists for one singular, clinical purpose: to prevent her opponent from ever, even for a single moment, finding their natural rhythm. To force them to stand at the baseline, bouncing the ball, waiting, stewing, until the self-doubt begins to crawl in through the cracks and the overthinking starts to take over. You want proof that this works? You want to see the blueprint laid out in real time? Go back to the US Open. Arthur Ashe Stadium. Night session. The brightest, loudest, most electric stage in the entire sport. Sigemund versus Coco Gauff, America's golden girl, the phenomenal rising star carrying the weight of an entire nation on her shoulders, playing some of the best tennis of her young career, with 70,000 volts of crowd energy pushing her forward on every single point. Everything was set up for Gauff to win. The talent was there. The momentum was there. The crowd was there. And what did Laura Sigemund do? She took all of that electricity, all of that energy, all of that momentum, and she turned it into a weapon against Gauff. She slowed the entire match down to a grinding, agonizing, painful crawl. Medical timeouts for injuries that vanished the second play resumed. Debates with the umpire over calls that weren't debatable. Towel breaks after points that didn't require towel breaks. Long, meandering walks between serves that had no athletic justification whatsoever. And you could physically see it working in real time. You could see Gauff's explosive, electric energy beginning to drain. You could see the fast-twitch muscles cooling. You could see the focus starting to fray at the edges. You could see the doubt beginning to creep in, slowly at first, then faster, then all at once. When the official finally issued a time violation, the crowd erupted. And what did Sigemund do? She didn't speed up. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge it. She escalated. Full theatrical tantrum. Arms waving. Voice raised. Playing the role of the wronged, persecuted victim with the kind of conviction that would earn a standing ovation at an Academy Awards ceremony. She complained about being penalized for the exact behavior she was visibly, obviously, unapologetically engaged in. Then she sat in the post-match press conference, looked the global sports media directly in the eye, and called the crowd disrespectful and the ruling deeply unfair. It was a masterclass, not in tennis, but in psychological warfare at the highest professional level. And it wasn't a one-time thing. At the 2026 Australian Open, she stepped to the baseline and served the ball while her opponent had her back turned, racket down, head bowed, completely unprepared. There is an unwritten code in professional sports, a fundamental, bone-deep respect between competitors. You wait. You make sure your opponent is ready. You honor the battle. Sigemund shattered that code without hesitation, won the point, and when her opponent demanded the umpire intervene, Sigemund went on the offensive, accused the official of bias, and screamed that it wasn't her job to check whether her opponent was awake. The match had to be physically halted. Supervisors were called to the court. That is the hallmark. That is the absolute defining signature of the Laura Siegemund career. Create total chaos, exploit every gray area in the rulebook, bend the unwritten codes of the sport until they are completely unrecognizable, and then cry foul the moment anyone dares to call you out on it. Now she is preparing to unpack that entire bag of tricks in Miami. She is going to slow everything down. She is going to argue with the officials. She is going to fake an injury at the worst possible moment for her opponent. She is going to turn the match into a circus. She is going to do everything in her power to make Ayala wait at the baseline until her muscles go cold and her mind starts to wander. And here is the massive, world-shaking twist. Ayala is ready for every single second of it. Not just mentally ready. Not just emotionally prepared. Specifically, deliberately, obsessively trained for it. Because Ayala has been spending her pre-Miami camp training daily alongside Jo Fana, one of the most aggressively intense, high-octane, relentless rising forces on the entire ADP tour. A player whose game gives you absolutely zero time to think, zero time to breathe, and zero margin to lose focus for even a single heartbeat. Training against Fana doesn't allow you to find a rhythm because Fana never lets you settle. He forces you to stay locked in at a frequency that Siegemund's slowdown tactics simply cannot penetrate. Ayala has been conditioning her brain, her composure, and her mental engine specifically to resist the psychological swamp that Siegemund is going to try to drag her into. And beyond the training camp, there is something even more important. Ayala has already survived the kind of pressure that would have permanently broken a weaker player. At the 2026 Australian Open qualifiers, with her career on the line, she was unfairly penalized by the officials. Points were taken away on calls that were flat out wrong. And instead of crumbling, instead of smashing her racket and walking off the court in tears, she planted her feet, marched to the chair, demanded a review, stared the officials down with steady eyes and a steady heartbeat, and forced a reversal. She beat the system. That is not luck. That is titanium. So when Siegemund walks onto that court in Miami and starts running her playbook, the delays, the fake injuries, the umpire arguments, the manufactured drama, she's going to look across the net and find something she has never encountered before. A player who doesn't just know the tricks are coming. A player who has been waiting for them. A player who has already been through worse, already survived more, and already proven to the entire world that she cannot be broken. The chaos is coming. The mind games are coming. And they're about to meet a wall that doesn't move. This is the match of the year. And it hasn't even started yet.